Okay, hello, welcome. So, my name is Amy Feldman, and I am actually a CTE teacher, a career and technical education teacher. I teach at Sunset Ridge Middle School, and I teach food and nutrition and child development. And although this is my first, like I just finished my first year, I have years of experience teaching this stuff because I have been a stay at home mom with my kids all these years. But I'm thrilled to be with you today. Can everybody hear me? Give me some thumbs up. Let me see if I can find some people. Okay, great. So I'm just going to jump right in. Today we are talking about standards-based grading in Canvas. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to share my screen. My picture will go away, but I will be right here with you talking to you. So I'm going to start right here with standards-based grading in Canvas. I have someone who is helping me monitor the chat. While I'm on this screen, I can go back and forth, but it is really difficult. I don't want to forget something. So if you need my attention, unmute yourself and just interrupt me, because that's how I roll, and I'm thrilled to be here with you guys. So let's just jump in and get started. Okay, so the takeaway from this class is, what is standards-based grading? I assume that some of you have either worked with standards-based grading or at least know about it. And we're going to talk about creating proficiency scales and adding those to Canvas, and teaching and assessing using sorry about that, using standards-based grading, and how to grade using standards-based grading. So first of all, basics of standards-based grading. So I don't know who knows what about standards-based grading, but our school has tried really hard to use standards-based grading in every subject in every class. So traditionally, you know that it's out of 100%, A, B, C, D, and F, based on your percentage, but that's what we're trying to get away from. So instead of a percentage, you have standards-based grading breaks down the subject into smaller learning targets. Each target is a teachable concept. So instead of it just saying mathematics, 95%, it's I can define, I can solve, I can create, I can estimate, okay? So throughout the term, students learn on each target, and each target is recorded. So teachers track student progress, give feedback, and adapt instruction. So it is a myth. You cannot just go from 100% and say that it's standards-based by dividing it by 4. Standards-based grading has 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? And so you can't take 100% and say, I'm going to divide it by 4. So that means the top 25%, 75%, sorry about that, 75% is considered a 4, because that is not standards-based grading. All you're doing is computing. So when you make a quiz or an assignment in Canvas, you can't give points. I'm going to give this question 1 point, and I'm going to give this question 0.25 points, so that all your points equal 4. That's also not standards-based grading. It's a whole different way of thinking. Okay. So in standards-based grading, grading is based on demonstration of mastery. Students attempt standard-aligned activities. Teachers assess the student output and choose the most appropriate mastery level. So here again is the example. This is our old traditional grading scale, and now we have the standards-based grading scale. Okay. It's, are they advanced? And this information comes from a website, which I'll share later. In our school, this is where we are. This is our standards for standards-based grading. So a level 4 is considered advanced. The student is proficient and demonstrates an advanced application of the concept or skill. Proficient, this is meeting the standard. This is what we are aiming for. This is passing. This is a good grade. A level 3 is a great grade because it says they can consistently demonstrate an understanding of, whereas level 4 is they're proficient and demonstrate. This is just consistently is understanding all the concept and skills of the standard. Now, level 2, the student demonstrates some understanding, and level 1, the student does not yet demonstrate. Okay, so this is why standards-based grading works. We want them to consistently demonstrate what they need to know. If they can't do it, then we do some remediation. We change the way we're teaching, anything to get the kids to understand, which we'll go over some of that later. Okay, so the very beginning, you have to figure out what is a proficiency scale. And you have to figure out how to make a proficiency scale so that you can then put it into Canvas and make your assignments based on those standards. So a proficiency scale is a table used by teachers and students to determine the student's current level of progress towards meeting the standard. It determines what standards go with what level of mastery. So I'm going to explain this to you. So let's see. Okay, so now I teach foods, so I'm going to show you a lot of stuff about foods class, but it is something that you can change through. I mean, you can do the same idea with every class that you teach. You can do this in math, in history, in science, in a language class. You can do this in an art class. No matter what you teach, you can use the same idea. So in foods class, we have our strand, which I think this is the same across any education. Then under the strand are the standards, right? And under each standard is bullet points. So I am showing you that this is strand 1. Here is under strand 1, there's standard 1, 2, 3, and 4, and so forth. Okay. Now, I have started a Google, it's not a slide, a Google, I can't think of the name. Not a Google Doc, not a Google slide, but a Google, like a chart or whatever. I can't think of the name right now. But anyway, this is, I titled it Food and Nutrition Proficiency Scales. I put my strands and standards there so I can always access them. I call each strand a unit. So I am sitting here typing out this information, cutting and pasting from the strands and standards to create this, okay? So these are my proficiency scales I have created. You can do this with no matter what class you are teaching. So in unit 1, I put in the learning goal, which is straight from the strands and standards. Then I put in each standard that goes under unit 1. So you can see strand 1 is safety and sanitation. That is my unit 1. Then you have apply, and then you have identify, complete, consistently, students will complete. Okay, so these are my performance objectives. This 1.1 stands for strand and standard, strand and standard, strand and standard. Okay. Now, if you are curious what these words mean and what group it should go under, I look at my strands and standards and I look at the word. It says, I can define, I can identify, I can discuss, I can describe, I can compare, I can prepare, I can create, I can research. These are just some examples. You have to look at your own strands and standards and decide, okay, is this word from the standard a level 2 word? Is it a level 3 word? Is it a level 4 word? Because remember, back here, what is level 1? They don't yet demonstrate. Level 2 is they're approaching. They demonstrate some understanding. So that means this is like vocab. Level 2 is vocab. And like, I'm just going to tell you what I know. Like, not even tell you what you know, you just have to be able to match it. It's multiple choice, it's matching, it's quizzes, it's vocab, it's just defining, okay? Then when they're in level 3, they're consistently demonstrating. That means they can actually tell you about it. They can do it. They can tell you about it. They understand it. Then level 4 is, what are you going to do about it? Now that you know this information, what can you do now? So if you look at these words, level 2 is define and identify. That's like level 2. They are understanding the words, they understand the vocab. Level 3, discuss and describe. Those are the words you're looking for. Anything they have to describe or teach you or show you, that is a level 3 score. And a level 4 is, what are you going to do about it now? Can you teach somebody? Can you think of something on your own? Can you actually do something with it? Okay. So back to my strands and standards. So here is my strand 1. Here's my standard 1. Now underneath standard 1, you have these bullet points. Okay. So I'm going to show you, and I can share with you later my performance objectives, my my proficiency scales that I have created on Google. I can share them with you so you understand how I've put all this together. I know it's a lot of information and you're probably just not understanding what I'm talking about, but hopefully you'll understand as we move forward. So under strand 1, there's a standard 1. Under standard 1, there's all these bullet points, okay? These are the words I'm looking for to decide, is it a level 2, level 3, or level 4, okay? So identify is a level 2 word. Explain is a level 3 word. Identify is a level 2 word. Explain, a level 3 word, okay? And up here, performance objective, I count that as a level 4 because you actually have to do something. And you have to be able to teach it. Okay, so as I create my proficiency scales in Google, I have that title, I have my unit 1, and then I break it down into each level, okay? So if you notice, these numbers are only for my benefit. This means strand 1, standard 1, bullet point 1. Strand 1, standard 2, bullet point 1. Okay. And this is all the level 2 stuff that's in my strands and standards. Identify, 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 all the way down, define, identify, identify. Those to me are all just vocab words that you just have to tell me what it means, tell me what it looks like. That's your multiple choice vocab quizzes. Okay. Now, as you go through their strands and standards, you will see other words like explain, discuss, describe, explain. These are all level 3. And as you notice, we're still in unit 1, which is strand 1. All of this starts with 1, but this is from standard 1. This is from standard 4. This is from standard 5. And then these are the different bullet points. So what I've done is I've taken all the strands and standards and separated them all into level 2, level 3, and level 4. So level 3 is like they have to explain something. They have to tell you about something. They have to show you something. And we're going to talk about different assignments that go with these things. Level 4 is things like research, consistently demonstrate, complete, demonstrate, employ, compute, double. And some of these strands and standards are going to be different if you're teaching math or something, but you have to come up with a word base. You have to come up with a word base that you will say, this is a level 4 word that I need to teach on a level 4 basis. This is a level 2 word because it's just vocab. So you have to take your own strands and standards and figure out which word goes with each level so that you know how to teach it on that level. I hope this makes sense. I hope this is making sense to you. Okay, so when students have, so this proficiency scale, I have a whole Google Doc with all my proficiency scales for the whole semester, right? The students, I put in the wrong picture here, but this side is this side right here on the right is what the teacher can check off. The teacher says, I've taught this, I've taught this, I've taught this. Then the students can click on this one and say, I've learned this. I know how to discuss this. I know how to do this, and I know how to do this. So if at the beginning of the semester, you give the students what they are going to learn that semester, then they can check off, oh, I know how to do this. Or they might come here and say, oh, I totally forgot how to correctly thaw my food. So I need to look that one up. So I'm not going to check this one off right now. So there's 2 sections of check marks, one for teachers, one for students. That way they can follow their own learning, okay? Oopsies. Okay, now we have our proficiency scales all done. They're on a Google Doc. They're in, or not a Google Doc, but a Google Sheet. They're all there. And now I'm going to use them to create my outcomes in Canvas, okay? Is everybody doing okay? Are you feeling overwhelmed? I will happily give you everything at the end so you can study this and look through this. I hope everyone is doing okay. Okay, so creating the outcomes in Canvas. You are going to use your proficiency scales to create outcomes. So click on outcomes in your Canvas course. So on your Canvas course, you will see your menu on the left-hand side of your screen, and it will say outcomes. Now I have mine hidden. I have other ones hidden, but this is just an example. But you, as the teacher, can see the outcomes, okay? So you are going to use your proficiency scales to create these outcomes. So you click. Now, I know this is really hard to do, like to actually learn without doing it, but I'm just going to quickly run through this so that you can kind of see how it all comes together. So once you click on outcomes, you don't want to add an outcome right away. You add a group first because your group is your unit. So I'm going to use Kitchen 2, Kitchen Manage, or Unit 2, Kitchen Management as my group. So I'm going to click on Group, add the name to your group, and hit Save. Okay, so that's your first step. Then in that group, you're going to add your outcomes. Now, you can see I took a little line from my proficiency scale. It says level 2 skills. I can identify various types of kitchen equipment. So when I add my outcome, I'm going to click on add outcome. I'm going to name the outcome, and I'm going to put a number 2 by it because it's a level 2. I can identify various types of kitchen equipment, okay? Then you will have to adjust the rubric. This rubric, this top picture, is what Canvas gives you to begin with. But you can change it. And since we're working on level 2, I want my rubric to be out of 2 points. Okay, and I'll explain this as we move on. Hopefully this will all click as we move on. So I'm going to change my rubric for this one learning target to be student can identify, student cannot identify, and it's out of 2 points. Now, you might think student cannot identify should be 0 points. The reason I do this, and I will explain this as we move along too, the reason I leave the cannot, no matter what rubric I'm using, as 1 point, because that tells me they attempted it, but they didn't do well enough to even get 2 points. So even in a level 4, and I'll show you more as we go along. So I'll hold that thought. But this is adjusting the rubric for a 2-point learning target, okay? This is adjusting the rubric for a 3-point learning target. So for instance, this top box is what the Canvas gives you without changing anything. This is what you change it to for level 3, okay? So students can explain is 3 points. Students can somewhat explain is 2 points. Student cannot is 1 point, and I'll explain that again later. Here is an adjustment for level 4. So students can compare, students can consistently compare, students can somewhat compare, and students cannot compare, okay? And that one's out of 4. So every learning target is worth 2 points, 3 points, or 4 points because it's a level 2 3, or 4. Okay. So now you have all of these learning targets. See this little target? And see how this says 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Those are all level 2 things. These level 3, here's learning targets for level 3 learning, and here's learning targets for level 4. So once you have entered all your outcomes, which is your learning targets, you are ready to make your assignments and rubrics, okay? I know this is like bombarding you with information, and it's going to take a lot of practice, and it takes a lot of time to do it. But once you get it all in Canvas, it is so smooth and it is so quick. Okay, so now what? Now you have your proficiency scales made. Now you have your outcomes entered into Canvas. Now you make your assignment. Now I'm going to show you a level 2 assignment because I don't give tests anymore in my classes. I give vocab tests, or like vocab quizzes, which is a level 2. And I also give like discussions and things like that for level 3. And then level 4 is actually doing it or going above and beyond to teach someone or to understand a concept or creating your own from what you learned, okay? So this level 2 assignment I'm going to give you. Now I'm going to break away for just a second. Students, when I teach a class, I look out and at one point, I was having everyone take notes the way I thought they should take notes. I would put up a PowerPoint on the big slide the projector in my room, and I would say, "Okay, you have to make a copy of this notes on your Google Drive, and then you have to fill in the blanks when I tell you to, and you have to do it my way." Okay. Then it dawned on me that half of the kids were zoning out. They were not comprehending what I was telling them because I thought that's how I needed to teach. So I changed the way I teach my information. I let the kids take notes their own way. Now, I provide them with a packet. I provide them with a Google Doc. I provide them with a notebook. If they need a spiral notebook, I will give them a notebook. They can choose one of those 3 ways to take their notes, or they don't have to take notes at all. If you are teaching them a concept, you have to be able to provide them with many opportunities for them to learn. And if this is what works for me, they can pick up a packet from me. They can open a notebook. They can open their computer because everyone has their own computer. Well, most students have their own Chromebook, or there's a Chromebook cart in your room or something that they can use a Chromebook, and they can go into their own Google Doc and they can take their own notes. But here's the catch about notes. And it could be any kind of notes that you give your students. Once they take that level 2 vocab quiz, which remember, it's just, what is this definition? How do I identify it? Okay. All students take the vocab quiz. The standards-based grading of a rubric. If students fail, they have to show me their notes to retake the quiz. So you will grade on a rubric, and then if they don't pass it and they want to retake it to get a better grade, which is what mastery is, they have to show me their notes. So if that student chose not to take notes at all, then now they have to go back, and what we call remediation, they have to go back and relearn the information, right? Because they're not allowed to retake the quiz unless they do their notes. Now, if they did their notes on a piece of paper and they didn't write down everything, well, they don't need to write down everything because that's their choice. When it comes to things, any subject, some students already know something about that subject. So if they feel like they don't need to write that down because they already know it, then that's fine. If they took notes, then they can retake the quiz. So I'm going to show you how to do this. So ideas for assessing level 2 is vocab quizzes, matching, a memory game, anything where they have to identify with the information, okay? That means they have to be able to just tell you what it means, tell you what it looks like. Okay. Level 3 assessments are things like, I want you to turn to your partner and do a pair and share. I want you to write a letter with 5 sentences explaining what this means. And then I will grade that as a level 3. I want you to create a discussion or fill out the discussion board on Canvas. That's a level 3 because they're discussing it, right? I want you to create a poster or a brochure or postcards or anything where they have to create something to explain to the teacher that they know what it means. Because remember, level 3 is words like explain and discuss, okay? Level 4 is your higher level, your advanced. So this is your compare and contrast. This is your, what are you doing outside of the learning to create something that that shows that you understand what we learned in level 2 and level 3. So for me as a foods teacher, it's the head or assistant cook, because if they are the head cook or the assistant cook and they are literally cooking the food and using the right equipment that they learned how to use and learned what the correct way to use that is, then they are doing level 2 and level 3 in creating that food. Okay. Now, grading and standards-based grading. We use Skyward here in Utah and or here in Jordan School District, but the grading, every grading system, well, I don't know about every, but lots of grading systems still have your grades out of 100%. So we have to deal with using grading systems while we're trying to grade on standards-based grading, okay? So all my level 2 stuff, I make the grade out of 2 points. Not out of 100 points, not out of 50 points. I make it out of 2 points, because if the student gets 2 out of 2, it's still 100, right? So in level 3, I make the grade 3 out of 3. In level 4, I make the grade 4 out of 4. Now in my grade book, and this is why remember when we added our outcomes and we changed the rubric, I told you that I keep it as a 1. And the reason I do that is because yes, they cannot identify or they cannot demonstrate, but they tried, okay? So I leave it as a 1 because they did not master it. And I only put a 0 in the grade book if they were absent or they did not do the assignment. Now, they can always make it up, as they can make up the 1s too. But my students know, because I tell them from the very beginning, my grades are based on 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you have a 0, that means you need to make up some work. If you got a 1, that means you need to redo some work. If you got 2 out of 2, great. If you got a 1 out of 2, you need to redo it. The students are trained to look at how many points that assignment is worth or that assessment, and then they can judge their score. So if they get a 1 out of 3, they need to redo it. If they get a 2 out of a 3, they need to redo it, or they can redo it. If on a level 4, if they have a 2 out of 4, in a grading system, that's only 50%. In standards-based grading, that means they did not master it and they need to try again. So it's a whole mindset on how to rethink the way you grade. And the grading systems do not help us, but we have to kind of tweak that to make the parents and the students see what they can do to master something, okay? Now, with that, we're back to these proficiency scales. So what I do when I'm ready to quiz on a vocab quiz, I'm going to show you how to make a level 2 vocab quiz in Canvas. We have our proficiency scales. These are also our outcomes, remember? These proficiency scales, how am I going to quiz them on this information? Because it's level 2, it's just going to be a vocab quiz. So that means matching, multiple choice. That means true or false even, okay? these are what we think of as our unit tests, but really unit tests that are multiple choice and matching, they're just a level 2. That's just your vocab. That's your identifying and defining, okay? So I use those as my level 2 scores. So let's say I just taught my students how to, what the different kitchen equipment is used for. I taught them how to use the microwave and what are some things about the microwave, and I taught them some abbreviations. So I want to give a quiz on these 3 standards, okay? Or on those 3 learning targets, I should say. So you have to make a rubric in Canvas so that you can correctly grade them on a standards-based way, okay? So rubrics, like I know you're sitting there thinking, there's so much work to do, there's so much to do, but I promise, once you get these proficiency scales in, get your outcomes in, all of a sudden, everything falls into place. You get these rubrics in and you can literally see where the student has fallen behind, or you can literally see what they passed. And I'm going to show you how to do this. But the thing is, the students also, not only can the teacher see, but the student can see what they missed and how it affected their grade. Okay. So rubrics are the point to help them improve from level 1 to level 3 and to level 4 for that matter. So on Canvas, we have this quiz, this vocab quiz. I created a kitchen equipment quiz, right? On Canvas, go to the quiz you created and click on the 3 little dots on the right side, okay, which are right here by edit. So the quiz is already created. Everything's ready to go. You've edited it. You've added your questions. These are all multiple choice questions, matching questions, and identify questions, okay? So you click on the 3 little dots. It'll say show rubric. Well, you haven't made one yet, but you still have to click on show rubric. Then it will say add your rubric, okay? Now, you need to title it. So I title it the name of the quiz. So I title it Kitchen Equipment Rubric. Or you could call it Kitchen Equipment Quiz Rubric or Kitchen Equipment Vocab Rubric, whatever you want to do. Now, if you created the rubrics on like you can create rubrics by going back to your main screen in Canvas and click on rubrics and make rubrics. You can actually click find a rubric, but I'm showing you how to create one right on your quiz, okay? Now, you're ready. If you look right here, you have the title and it's ready to go. On Canvas, it'll say, find an outcome, add a criterion, okay? We have our outcomes already typed up. So all you have to do is click find an outcome. This new screen will pop up. We're in unit 2 because that's the quiz. So I'm going to click on unit 2. And then I look at my quiz. Okay, here is my outcomes that I typed into Canvas. Do you see them on the bottom here? Here's my outcomes. I want to decide which outcome am I going to put on the quiz rubric. So I know in my quiz, I have 10 items that they have to tell me what these items are called. So I have 10 questions what is this? Okay. So I'm going to add an outcome associated with those 10 questions, which is I can identify various types of kitchen equipment. So that learning target, I'm going to click on it and it's going to add to my rubric. Okay. So I'll show you. So you must, when you are importing outcomes into a rubrics, you have to unclick this little use this criteria for scoring. And I'll show you why in just a minute. Once you have added all the outcomes that you want in your rubric, then you click import, okay? So now here is my finished rubric for my kitchen equipment vocab quiz. Now, if you look right here, I created this rubric. Remember, my quiz had 10 what is this picture? And they had to tell me what the picture was, which goes into this learning target. My quiz had 2 questions about the microwave, which goes into this part of the rubric. And I had a set of matching that gave 6 abbreviations, and they had to tell me what that abbreviation is, and that goes under this learning target. So this whole rubric comes directly from my strands and standards. I didn't make anything up. It is word for word from my strands and standards. My quiz is directly from the strands and standards. I'm grading them from that standard, okay? Now, this, did you remember where I said you have to unclick where it says use this criterion? You have to unclick that, because if you don't, it's going to allow you to put in points on all of these learning targets. You don't want to do that. You want one section of points, okay? Now remember, this kitchen equipment rubric is only out of 2 points, but Canvas gives us 5, so we must edit it. So see these little pencils? These little pencils help you edit. So I'm going to show you. So here is what Canvas gives us, right? 5 to 0, okay? But this is a level 2 vocab quiz. So I only want it worth 2 points. So I'm going to change. Now, in our school, again, it might be different for your school, but in my school, we strive for at least 80% accuracy on a level 2 skill to show approaching proficiency, which is level 2 in standards-based grading. So here is my description of the criterion. I changed 5 into 2. That means 80% or more. And I left it as a 1 because it's beginning. That means they got lower than 80%. Now you might think, well, they shouldn't have a 1 if it's 80% or less. That's kind of like a C. You've got to get that thinking out of your mind. It is not A, B, C, D. It is, can they do it or can't they do it? Okay. And if they get a 1, they're going to see that in the grade book and they're going to know they have to redo it. It takes a lot of training and a lot of rethinking. Okay. So I changed the criteria. Now, I could not show you in SpeedGrader because I don't have any students during the summer that have taken this quiz. But when you are done, well, you have to create your rubric. So once you've created your rubric, you hit create rubric, then the students will take the quiz. Then you open SpeedGrader. Once you're in SpeedGrader, you will see something like this. Then, and I'll show you what I mean. You will see something like this. Use the rubric to grade the quiz. Now remember, my quiz had technically 13 problems. On Canvas, it would be out of 13. But we don't want it out of 13, we want it out of 2 because this is a level 2 quiz. Are you following? So here are the 3 standards that I'm grading it on. So when I look at their quiz results and I say, okay, I have, out of these top 10 questions, the first 10 questions, they're all identifying various types of kitchen equipment. So I sit there and think to myself, okay, there's 10 matching. Out of those 10 matching, not matching, but 10 identify this, what this thing is. Out of those 10, what is this questions? They missed 2. Well, that's 80%. So I'm going to click on student can identify because I'm striving for 80% accuracy. Then in the quiz, there's 2 questions about microwaves. And I sit there and think, okay, the 2 questions on microwaves, if they miss 1, that's 50%. They don't have 80% accuracy. So it's a 1 point student cannot identify. Are you following? Then on the last question, which is has 6 parts, it's all abbreviations. They have to be able to identify at least 80% of that. That means they have to get 5 out of 6 correct. So you might think this grading is a little harsh or a little bit more time consuming, but as the student looks at it and says, I can identify various types of kitchen equipment. Can they do it or they can't? They need help. I can identify basic principles of cooking in the microwave. They can or they can't, okay? So as you are grading the rubric, and this is exactly what I was trying to explain to you, if you are grading with the rubric, if they get 8 out of the 10 questions, then they get a passing score. If they get the next 2 questions correct, they get the passing 2 points. The last question is matching. There's 6 matches. So 5 out of 6 would give them a positive 2 points on this last learning target. So if the learning targets are all correct, then they have 80% or higher. Now, because this only has 3 learning targets, this one quiz, it's very difficult for a student to get a 1 and have a 2 overall. But if you had a quiz that you had 10 learning targets, then you can see how this rubric would have maybe different circles as you go along. And then you can decide out of all those circles, which one gives you approaching proficiency or beginning level. So when you put your grades in, you cannot just take what Canvas gives you and switch it into standards-based grading. You have to grade with a rubric and change how many that points, how much it's actually worth. Okay, so once you use the rubric and it tells whether they get the 2 points or not, then you can sync it over to your grading system or type it into your grading system out of 2 points instead of what would have been 11 or 13 or something. I hope you're understanding this. So once the unit is done, you have taught everything, level 2, 3, and 4. You have given them different assignments and assessments. You are looking at an overall grade for the unit. Did they master each learning target? Did the student master the standards? So I give my students a grade on everything, 2 out of 2, 3 out of 3, 4 out of 4, so they can see because it actually counts. But once the unit is done, now you have a choice, okay? So here is, let's say this is my unit 2. I have my vocab quiz, I have equipment selection, I have cooking demonstration, I have safety in the kitchen and equivalence. So let's say Jane here had a 2, a 0, a 2, a 4, a 4, a 4. I can change those grades into a no count and just give them 1 grade for the unit. Because did they master it? If she failed a vocab quiz and didn't redo it, or she was absent, let's say she was absent, but then she was able to use those vocab words as part of her cooking, if she can pass on a level 4, does that mean she is proficient? Yes, it does. It means that she is proficient. So although she missed 1 vocab quiz and never made it up, overall, she did everything correctly and she mastered this unit. And she gets a 4 for the unit. Now, John, on the other hand, he was absent when we did all of our cooking, and he never came back to try and do it, or he didn't work on anything at home, and he didn't go to teach anybody or anything. So he got 0s on these level 4 things. He got vocab, correct, but a vocab is level 2. So he cannot get a level 4. I mastered the unit, okay, which is the strand. So what I do after the unit is over is I switch them to no count. It's still in their grade book, but it doesn't count for anything. And they get an overall grade for that 1 unit. Now, if you don't like only having a few grades per unit, you could also do it by standard. So Jane, did she pass strand 2, standard 1? Yep, she did. And John did too, but he got 2 out of 3 instead of 3 out of 3. So if you want more than 1 grade per unit, you can do it by standard too. This is just an example. So you're probably saying, why would I ever go to all this work? What is the point? Why do we do standards-based grading? And I'm going to tell you again and again, just get it done. Work on it during the summer, work on it on the weekend, work on it for the next year and use it the following year. But once you build everything in Canvas, then it's there and you can use it over and over and over again. And it makes teaching so much more easy. And we use standards-based grading because it's more relevant information. Students at level 1 get activities that help them reach level 2. Level 2 students get activities to help them reach level 3, and so forth. Classrooms break into smaller groups. And I know this was hard during COVID. I know this. I mean, it was hard in my foods class to make sure everyone was safe at all times and sanitized all the time. But in this environment, students are less frustrated by poor fitting instruction. School is a more positive experience. They want to come to your class because they understand that they can always improve. We use standards-based grading to learn intrinsic motivation. Standards-based grading is the focus on learning and mastery. Striving for mastery is an intrinsic motivator and transforms students' attitudes. They learn because they want to learn. They are in charge of their own learning, okay? It also helps them be emotionally safe. I know so many students that are so scared of tests. And in standards-based grading, scores go up as students learn. Final grades are reflective of the mastery of that strand or of that standard. There is little penalty for mistakes. No event can ruin their grade. It removes the problem of zeros. It often, when student gets a poor score, they can work more on that topic, increasing their learning and reassess. So this helps the students do better in school. It helps them want to do better in school. And lastly, we use standards-based grading because it is an accurate measurement of learning. It improves the situation. The low complexity work yields lower grades, while mastery of higher complexity work provides higher grades. Connecting grades to complexity rather than percentage completion yields more accurate and consistent grades. So lastly, I got some of my information for standards-based grading from this website. So I am going to come back to you, and I hope that you understand that this is a process. This is something I have worked towards. It is not going to happen in all one sitting. You will spend several hours getting those proficiency scales made and those outcomes made and all of those things. But it just, once it's done, it will be there and it will just help you with every semester, every student, because they can literally see what you're doing. Now, hopefully you guys have my email. I know that it was available. If you want my email, I'm going to type it right here in the chat.
Amy, you also had some people that sent me their emails I've sent to you, so you can send the slides to them as well.
Excellent. And the slides, I am happy to share any slide. I'm happy to share the way I built my proficiency scales. I'm happy to, you can even download my stuff from the Canvas Commons. I'm happy to share anything you need to help you start to execute this. One of the questions in chat, let's see.
Yes, you have one question in the chat besides sending the slides that says, when you go to Skyward, do you enter a percentage?
No, I do not enter a percentage because Skyward likes percentages, right? Skyward is stuck on out of 100%. And because we have to deal with Skyward, we're trying to teach standards-based grading, but Skyward is still in traditional grading. So that's why when I put it into Skyward, I put the assignment in as like 2 out of 2 or 3 out, like it's worth 3 points. So when I put a 3 in, the student is going to get 100%. Does that make sense? If it's worth 3 points and I give them a 2, it's only going to give them 67%. And I'm telling you what, those kids are not going to like that, and they're going to be coming to you saying, "How can I fix this grade?" So it's and once that whole unit is done, you can actually keep those in Skyward, but move them onto a no count, and then enter 1 grade for the entire unit, or list a grade for standard 1, standard 2, standard 3 under that unit. Does that answer your question, LaDonna?
Yes, it does. I was
Great.
just trying to kind of clarify. You actually have Canvas and Skyward the exact same that we have. So,
Oh, great. Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome. You know, I'm kind of old school. I don't like syncing my information. I don't like syncing Canvas to Skyward, because I swear to you, something always screws up. So I actually keep a clipboard so I know who has done what, and then I enter them manually with
Okay.
2, 3, 4, or 1 or 0 or whatever. And then, but they're all going to end up going as a no count. That's just like you're leading up to your final standards-based grading score. Does that make sense?
yes, but it seems like a lot of work for the teacher. I'm not a teacher, but it seems like a lot of work.
And I'm telling you, it is a lot of work. I spent at least 8 hours just doing the outcomes for 3 of my units, because I built, well, okay, so it took me 8 hours to build my entire proficiency scale for my 1 class. And then I got 2 or 3 units in my Canvas account when I said, I can't do this anymore. I mean, not that I can't do it. I was stopping that session of my working time. And I've gone back now and added more, but I'm telling you though, once it's all in, there's nothing to change. There's nothing, I mean, yes, you're putting a ton of work up front, but once your Canvas is built and you're repeating your class over and over again, it just automatically, it just fills in. And there's no rethinking or rechanging the percentage or anything like that, because you have your proficiency scale, you have your strands and standards, you're ready to teach in that mode instead of how am I going to do this next? Does that make sense? It is a lot of work up front.
Yes, I'm just thinking, you know, our teachers like to just push the button for their scores to come over from
Right.
Canvas to Skyward, and as you say, they could come over, but it sounds like there's some room for error.
Well, there's always room for error, and I'm scared about it, to be honest. But all of my coworkers in the CTE department, they all sync their grades, and they all think I'm crazy for hand typing them into Skyward. And so you can actually sync them. It's just when you build your different quizzes and your discussions and things like that. Hold on, let me shut this door. Sorry about that. They're working in the hallway. But when you actually build your assignments and assessments in Canvas, you can put it as 3 out of 3 or 2 out of 2, and you can still sync it. You have to sync it based on the rubric, not based on how many questions are in the quiz or how many, you know what I'm saying? So you have to.
Right, I've got it.
There's a little tweaking, but once you have it made, it's done. Does anyone have any other questions for me? You can unmute yourself and ask a question if you'd like. And one other thing, once you start grading by a rubric, in your mind, you know how, like once you start teaching on a standards-based grading platform, then your mind starts working in that direction instead of percentage. It's weird how you train your brain to work in that mode. And so, yes, I make rubrics for a lot of my quizzes, my vocab quizzes, which are level 2. I don't always make rubrics for level 3 or level 4 because I know in my mind how they did it as 80% or higher. Now, 80% is what our school does. You might do something else, but mastery for that assignment is whatever you as the teacher say is mastery. Okay. So like you think of, do you want to say something, Tiff?
You have another question, but I didn't want to interrupt.
Okay.
Uh,
So really quick. So what I'm trying to say is once you get in a mindset of how to grade on a rubric, it changes the way you look at the test results. Instead of it just being out of a percentage, you sit there and go, okay, out of this test, these many questions are from this standard. This standard is worth this many points. And you kind of have this rubric in your mind that you know how to do it. Okay, was it difficult to explain? No. Okay, so the question is, was it difficult to explain standards-based grading to the students? No, not at all. It took them, the hardest part was for them, because they are so trained and so are their parents, to look at Skyward, right? And they sit there and go, I have an A, B, C, or D in Skyward. Okay. They haven't made the switch in their brain to standards-based grading. And so at the beginning of the class, because I teach semester classes. So at the beginning of the class, and even if you teach a year class, you could re-teach at the semester. And you can say something like, okay, the way I'm running my class is we have level 2 things, we have level 3 things, and I explain to them what these assignments, what assignments will fall into these categories. And then I will tell them, in Skyward, you will see that this vocab quiz is only worth 2 points. And I'll have some students after the first unit after I've taught the first unit, some students will come back to me and say, Ms. Feldman, it says I only have a 2. I got 2 out of 4. How did I get 2 out of 4? And I said, she goes, I got 100% on my quiz. And because they're looking at the Canvas and they see that they get them right? But they don't think in their brain, oh, this is only worth 2 points because it's a level 2. So it's just practice. And once my students, it took them probably, because they'll come to me and say, I only got 2 out of 4. And I'm like, is it out of 4 or is it out of 2? And they look on Skyward, oh, it's only out of 2. Okay, what is 2 out of 2? Well, it's still 100%. So then they're like, oh, I get it now. Does that make sense? So it is a whole learning thing. And every teacher is trying to do something different. And I think that's the hardest part, is your students practicing and learning what you are doing in your classroom. I mean, granted, we all want to teach on the standards-based level, but teachers are taking it different ways. And we have to come to a unified teaching on mastery instead of percentage. And as far as my students go, it just took them a couple times. And even after I entered the first couple grades, I'll have all the students open their Skyward and say, okay, do you remember what we talked about at the beginning of this class? As you can see, here are some grades I entered, and you're going to see if you have a 1, that means you did not pass it. That means you need to come back and let me know and we can work together. If you have a 0, that means you were absent. If you have 2 out of 2, good job, you got 100%. I say that, but it means they mastered it. So you might even say 2 out of 2, you mastered it. That means you are finished with that learning target or whatever you want to say. If you see a 2 out of 3, that is something else you need to explain. Well, on this rubric, you missed a third of what I was trying to get you to cover, and this is how you can fix it. Okay. Well, my time is up in about 1 minute. So please, please, please reach out. I am more than happy to FaceTime you. We can Zoom call. I can send you all different kinds of stuff. I will send you copies of the slideshow I did today. I can send you a copy of my proficiency scales so that you can take the outline and create your own for whatever subject you teach. But I hope this wasn't too overwhelming, and I'm so thrilled to be here. And this is nervous and exciting, and I would give you all a big hug if I were in person. But please know that I'm here for you, and reach out anytime. Love ya.